All right, guys, welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast. And I say welcome back because, not because we're welcoming you back, we're welcoming Easton and I back because we've been gone. We were on a whitetail hunt in Kentucky for the past few days, and we have returned. However, we have, and you have to remind me of the name. Are we using his name today? Is it okay that we
Dustin Latson.
Dustin Latson, you are our lucky winner. This is like The Price is Right. Come on down. We're going to talk about you guys don't even know what I'm talking about, do you? Yeah, it's a game show. So anyhow, long story short.
Price is Right. I think it's still on, isn't it?
It is? Oh, I didn't know that. So, but anyhow, we're going to be talking about what Dustin has sent in. I think he brought up a really good topic. And anything that's whitetail related right now is probably a pretty hot topic. Maybe elk might be the biggest topic right now because we're getting ready to go on our next hunt. Actually, Warren is the hunter. I will be the caller. So depending on how much he greases my palm on how well I call, and we'll see how that goes. And then Nick has got to hit record. So we're going to team up on these elk to hopefully bring you guys an elk hunt from the great state of Colorado.
Yeah.
And I have lots of pictures to show you from Colorado where Lance and those guys are slaying them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we're not going to slay them, but we're going to slay one giant.
Well, he killed a tank.
Yeah?
No, his buddy, he says 345. It looks bigger.
That's a big bull.
Mm-hmm. So, anyhow, with that being said, I will turn it over to Warren, who might have to do a little housekeeping before. But just remember, we keep telling you guys there's a podcast discount for those of you that are just coming over, especially if you're one of the ones, and there's lots of you that have come over from the WCB podcast. Welcome to Raised Hunting. We appreciate you guys and gals. I think there might be some women involved there too.
All yes. Right. With that being said, please leave a review. It really helps us grow. Share it with your friends. And we'll start with Spotify, folks. Joe Mowry says, great podcast. Heard you guys on the Working Class Bowhunter podcast and had to give yours a listen. Stopped listening to others that just regurgitate the same thing over and over. And so now I'm playing catch up. Thanks for great podcast and great sense. Shoot straight and keep up the great content. We appreciate you, Joe, and welcome to the crew. Drew, love the podcast. Just put out my white pine rub post, hoping to get some pictures, even though my bucks have disappeared due to not having rain for 8 weeks here in southern Illinois. Devin, hey guys, bit of a new listener here. Welcome, Devin. I know you guys are based out of Iowa, but I hunt in northern Wisconsin, 40-acre permission piece with 25 acres of ag and 15 of just tall pine rows, thick enough to the point where little ground foliage grows due to the lack of sunlight reaching the ground. Just curious how you guys would hunt a piece of land like this. That surrounding land is all ag and more pines with a bit of marsh on the neighboring land. Love all the knowledge you guys share. Devin, I actually really like your scenario, to be honest with you. Vega, not to brag, but I told means is
we'll probably talk about it on another podcast.
Well, I was going to go back to it right after this one. Vega, not to brag, but I tow 3 to 4 times a week with my truck, and I know how to use ratchet straps.
Nice.
We got a big shot over here.
I think we should have a T-shirt made of a dude working a ratchet strap.
Good idea, actually.
I ratchet.
Honk if you know how to ratchet strap.
You know what? That would be awesome going down. We need to get our trailer. Honk if you know how to ratchet.
Maybe we should do like ratchet straps over ratchet wives. Or something.
I don't know if that was proper.
Yes, Devin, we'll cover yours on a separate podcast, which with that being said, we do have a really fancy system now. If you go to the website and you click on the podcast tab, you can submit your question with images and pictures and everything that we would need to answer it correctly. But just, I guess, in a really quick answer summary for you, I really like your scenario. The reason I like that is I always like any kind of bedding area that's surrounded by ag because you're an island. So as long as you can get into that area without spooking the deer, you got a great chance of them coming past you, especially during the rut. Okay. I think that's enough for now.
Yeah.
For now.
You want me to read the topic, or are you going to read it, or he's going to read it, or what?
Well, I guess I can read it.
Then we'll go into Kentucky after that.
Mm-hmm.
Go into
All
Kentucky.
right. I do like this new little form that we've got for you guys because it gives us a lot of information on the first go. All right, so Dustin sent in, hey guys, I listen to every podcast while at work and I've learned a lot. The best hunting podcast around. I live in northern Minnesota and hunt the big woods, and I haven't shot anything worth putting on my wall. I get some trail camera, but come season, never see them again. We've talked about that before, but this is one of the guys we feel bad for. For someone who never shot a big or a monster, I see more rubs than I do scrapes. How can I chase a buck off of rubs? What he's referring to is how can I use rubs as a tool? And blind calling, is it worth doing? Again, getting very frustrated. Be curious to know what your version of monster is.
Yeah, he's probably killed some 160s.
Yeah, because I've heard some guys saying stuff like that. All right, well, I think that's a good one. And I think that we probably have a lot to say on this one. Who would like to go first?
I mean, there's lots of stuff to talk about. What do you want to talk about first, though? The rub or the calling or?
I personally would be addressing. To me, I'm guessing that when he says big woods.
Can I read it? I want to read a couple things.
I'm gonna guess maybe this is like northern Minnesota or something, and not much ag.
He said northern Minnesota.
Oh, he
the
did
big
say.
woods.
Okay.
Didn't he say northern Minnesota, or am I hallucinating?
All right, so if I was in your position, which I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm an expert on what to do here because I haven't hunted the big woods of northern Minnesota. What I would be doing in your position, though, is I'm going to assume that what you're saying is that there's not much ag around, and so it's kind of random. You're having to hunt these huge blocks of timber, and the rubs are telling you where the deer are. That's kind of what I'm gathering from this submission. Me personally, I would be looking at all of these places that you are finding lots of rubs and then trying to figure out what is in common. And what I mean by that is not necessarily just like it's similar types of trees or I'd be looking at the topography as a whole, trying to understand if there's something that is consistent. Is there a food source? Because maybe they're eating shrubs or something else there. Are they on benches? Is it near swamps? Is it what? I want to understand the deer as a whole better first, to me personally, before I'm really concerned about just what I see as the rubs. If I'm going to be hunting the big woods and I don't have a food or ag source or anything like that, well, then I need to try to understand where these deer are and why they're there. And that's what I'd be trying to do first. And so the only way I could do that is going off of the information he's provided. Well, he's clearly found sign that would state that there is deer. There's deer there. And so then I'd be trying to figure out why are these deer here? And from that point, then I think I'd have a baseline to go off of.
Yeah, and if he's running his cameras right now or early in the year, and then he's saying he doesn't get any pictures, that's a pretty common thing for just about anywhere, whether you're in the northern big woods or not. If you're running your cameras during the summer and then they go slow or whatever, you're not getting as many pictures, you need to move your cameras, especially this time of year, because they're starting to shed their velvet. They're going to be moving. You're going to have to find where the new areas are. The good part, though, is it sounds like his situation, they're there during the rut, obviously, because they're making rubs and everything. So maybe where his cameras are right now isn't the best spot, but you could also move these around to get a better idea, because they're going to be somewhere in there if you're telling us that
there's sign that they were there. Yeah.
Yes. So it's not like they're just vanished, but your cameras may be off. Like you may need to move around, probably do need to move around to get better information with those too.
I wouldn't be shocked either. I mean, honestly, I agree with you. So I do think you need to move your cameras, but I think you need to be careful about that during September, because your cameras, it's normal for them to be slow.
Yeah.
Like my cameras this past weekend were lit. They were going nuts. And
what's the last
as soon
weekend?
as it warmed up, so it was
Heat-wise.
over the last weekend, I think our highs, I don't know what you guys had, but it was gorgeous here. Like
40s at night.
70 is a high. I mean, it wasn't getting over 70. I mean, freaking gorgeous. And my cameras were lit. And then as soon as it freaking heated back up,
Dead again?
dead. I got coons licking my buck junkie, and occasional deer, and that's it. And so you could have looked at that. You could have looked at that same camera and been like, "What the hell?" Because I told you guys, I put that camera up in less than 24 hours. I had 9 bucks on it, all hitting my scrapes, baby.
Yeah.
Shameless plug. And then from there, the last day I've had 2 bucks, which is still not terrible, but compared to 9.
Yeah.
And it's, I think a big part of that is the heat. So don't be panicking if I haven't had many deer on camera. Well, when it's this hot and stuff, they aren't going very far. They're lazy. They don't do that much.
There was a couple other things that could have contributed. I don't know how much they do. We don't rely a lot on it, but the moon phase, you got a full moon when you were getting all those. Because I remember us noticing that it popped up that first day we were there.
You're going to hate me now.
Hold on.
I've listened to enough studies now that I
don't think the moon has anything to do with it.
Somebody freaking gives me some genuine, the moon doesn't do anything.
The other thing is, though, that you had a rising and steady high pressure system. So the barometer was high. And so I think that could play an effect on it, too, where now we're tanking again because it's gotten hot and humid. And so anyhow, I don't know if that's – but going back to his scenario – I think you guys have kind of hit the nail on the head. I guess I've been in this scenario. I've hunted this kind of stuff. And the first thing that I would say is, number one, if you're getting, first of all, he says he's getting pictures of bucks, but he doesn't say what he's getting pictures of, like, is the kind of buck he wants to mount, which is what he's after. So if you're not getting pictures of those, they may not be there.
Did he say that, or did he say he hasn't killed one?
He said he hasn't killed one, but he gets pictures of bucks before the season.
He hasn't killed one that is worth hanging.
Yeah.
But are his pictures of deer also not?
He doesn't clarify that. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I'm going to assume that there are some shooters in that he would consider this is what like the kind of deer I'm looking for.
Okay.
And if that's the case, the first thing that you have to do is identify the terrain because I'm looking back. There's 2 different places, 2 different states that I hunted that I dealt with that. One was Arkansas, where it's all big woods. There's no agriculture when you hunted Hurricane Bottoms. Okay, it was but you had water, and that would give you like these small ridges and things like that. And it may be extremely subtle, but now with OnX, you can recognize and I'm going to use like a 15-foot elevation. Seems like nothing. But a 15-foot elevation there in the ground topography meant it was out of water at some point. So therefore, it became a ridge. Once you start to notice that, there's a ridge here, which you wouldn't have even seen it if you weren't looking for it. You have something that tells you, and it may not be a raise in the terrain. It might be a change in the type of agriculture or whatever's there, like the kind of trees. It could be shrubs to big trees. And the other one that I would tell him is start with trying to find, if you're in big hardwoods, you probably got white oaks, some of them. That's one of the targets. Or find out what your deer are feeding on and use that as your agriculture. And then move your cameras to somewhere close to that and then base it off of that. The one thing that I would caution as we get into talking about rubs and things like that is we have tried to tell people, and the reason I bring this up, someone else just asked last night, don't combine rubs or scrapes or our scents or anyone else's scents with your food source, meaning where you got a feeder right here and a rub right here, and they're 6 feet apart. You're probably not going to get much action.
I don't think they can use food in Minnesota.
Right. And all I'm getting at is if you find a white oak tree, I'm not telling you make a scrape under that white oak tree. That's not what I'm talking about.
What trees are predominantly in northern Minnesota? I would think pines, right?
I don't know. I haven't hunted up there enough. I'm just going off of what I know in a lot of the other northern areas. Well, and they have some big hardwoods. So I think it could be hickory, could be oak, that kind of stuff.
Okay. And I would think, I've hunted whitetails in between here and Montana, so I've never been able to, I can't say that I've gone and been able to hunt big woods deer or anything like that, although I think it'd be fun. I would still think, though, that those deer, even though they're in big woods, they may be harder to kind of find, locate, get pictures of, but they can't be just completely random. I would think, like, you'd still have bucks that I think they would still have a core area.
No, that's exactly
like they still have somewhere they like. They still go to certain areas and feed or check does or whatever it be. Like there still is going to be some level of consistency to them. Otherwise, nobody would be killing deer in that stuff. So to me personally, I like that kind of thing because I think the easiest way for you to find those deer is to scout, to be putting your boots on the ground, finding rubs, finding scrapes, and putting miles on until you find those areas where there's deer.
And
aspen, pines, spruces, and birches.
Aspens, pines, spruces, and birches.
Yeah. So there probably isn't even an oak tree.
Yeah, it may not be an oak tree, but those deer are feeding
Unless
on
they
something.
have one of them.
If they have deer
nice.
there, they're feeding on something, and that's what I'm getting at. Regardless of where you are, figure out what your deer are feeding on. No different, like you talking about planting a persimmon tree here. You know, I hunted one in Arkansas. You had about 4 days but in those 4 days, guaranteed they're coming.
Yep.
I mean, but if you miss those 4 days, it's over.
Yep.
So there'll be things, but exactly what you're saying. The only thing that I think that we need to understand is it can be a lot more difficult to identify feeding, bedding when it all looks pretty similar.
Same, yeah.
You know, so again, using terrain and that kind of thing to play to your benefit. But I'm just going to assume from the way he wrote that he has stayed put with his cameras, and they were good, and then the season they're not. That his deer there's somewhere else that they're doing their breeding, you know, or maybe he's not utilizing scrapes and rubs and things like that to see if he can get photos that way.
I think Warren has got to be closer to that one because, by the sounds of it, your deer don't just leave for a couple weeks and everything comes back typically just for fun. Like if they're there, if they're going to stay there from when they shed their velvet and stuff, they're probably going to stay there. If they're going to be there before and then you have them during the rut, either it's totally different deer or they never really left and you just weren't seeing them. So I would lean towards the fact that they're either not moving much or they might be right there somewhere. You're just not getting them on camera. But as far as he's asking about hunting them on rubs, this is an interesting one because, in my opinion, you guys can disagree with me if you'd like.
Okay, I disagree.
I think I'm not surprised. I think hunting deer off of rubs is like 1 in a million chance you're going to get a deer to come back to a rub that was naturally started. Yeah. Like that you go walking through the woods and there's 10 rubs sitting there that a buck got fired up or a couple of them did and you're going to sit on it. Good luck. Like they're 9 times out of 10 they're not coming back to it. Yet, if we put our own rubs in, that is one of the most powerful tools we can possibly use. But in his situation, if I was trying to find them, I wouldn't start with that. I'd be starting with, he says that he can't find as many scrapes. There's one. I'd be willing to bet somewhere in there. If you're finding some scrapes in there, you're finding a bunch of rubs, there is a large scrape in there that you have not found yet. And it's probably big. And it's probably every deer in there that is going to be using it. And they've probably been using it every single year. That's what I'd be looking for. That would be my jackpot. Like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, that would be odd to me to have that many rubs and not a.
Well, I think we should clarify because Easton's. I'm 100% in agreement. I do not disagree. Like I was joking a minute ago. However, we need to explain though. There's a difference though between a rub, just a rub or a rub line, and if you find an existing signpost rub, sit your ass on it.
Yeah,
because he may come back. And what we're talking about is it will typically be larger. It's a tree that these deer have come back year after year and they keep hitting it. And more than one hits it. It's no different than what we're doing by putting our rub tree in and making that a signpost rub. If you can find one that exists, the problem
you're saying shredded. Like this isn't the rub that you see where it's the little 4-inch sapling.
Correct. And there's not 10 of them.
You're right.
You know, and they're all going north. You know, I mean,
that's got to, because you got to be able to explain this because I've had so many people reach out, especially through the website and stuff, that have said that they found one. And I don't disagree that you can find them, but they're a lot more rare than you think, a genuine one that you can sit there and they are coming to it naturally. So finding the difference in them is extremely difficult. One of the biggest differences, if they've been using it for many years, they will have the freaking tree literally.
It'll look like an hourglass.
Narrowed down. But if it's a new one or they've only been using it for a couple of years maybe, I don't really know how you're going to be able to tell that unless you pay attention to it for like what you guys did on one place. You guys I wouldn't have picked that where you guys put the camera on one. I wouldn't have picked that as one unless I've never seen it in person. I've only seen it in your guys' trail camera pictures. But I wouldn't have picked that as like, hey, this is one of those signpost rubs. You guys put a camera on it thinking it might be, and sure enough, it's
every year.
Yeah.
That they They do hit that one.
Well, here's and the best way I can describe it. One, like Easton said, like an hourglass design, meaning they started wearing it out. The other is they look black or they're more red. They're not shredded necessarily.
Well, there's a couple you found that are shredded.
Shredded, I agree, but what I notice about them is the backside of the tree is rubbed. Maybe they haven't hit it now, but that tells me it was last year or the year before. Another tree right beside it. Typically, there's more than one. It's a couple right there. And for whatever reason, they're not small trees. They're pretty good-sized trees that these deer come back to, the ones that they decide to come back to over and over again. So anyhow, that's kind of what I'm looking for is I want to see some weathered rub activity, meaning not from this year. And what's awesome is if you find it before the season, either you put some of our buck junkie on there or you leave it alone or you know, and then you come back by, holy crap, and now it's hit. Okay, I knew it was hit years ago or last year, but now it's hit again this year, you know, and now I would stick a camera on it and say, let's see what's happening here because you may have just found it.
Yeah. I think let's speak a little bit to Dustin's situation too, though, he's saying that he's finding lots of rubs. Mm-hmm. So what is that an indicator of then?
The rut. They're there during the rut.
They're there during one, there's deer there.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to keep in mind, in my opinion, is we hear a lot that people will find several rubs and they're like, this buck is bedding here. At this point, I'm going to tell you that we are subject matter experts on rubs. Okay, like we know a lot about rubs, and we've paid significantly more attention to rubs than 99% of people because we also have been utilizing and testing our products with rubs. So we've been putting cameras on normal ones, on ours, on everything else. And what we found is where folks are saying this is how I know that this is this buck's bed because there's all these rubs right here. Their thought process is this buck comes and he beds here and he gets up and he rubs a tree. Then he comes back the next day and he rubs that one. And he comes back the next day and he rubs that one. Well, we're finding that's not true. That's not accurate. What is actually happening is that is either a strong travel corridor or it is a bedding area. And there is multiple bucks that are going through there, utilizing that, hitting those rubs. It's not just one. So that would be, in Dusty's case, in my opinion, the first thing I'd be saying is, good, you're near deer. Now I'd be trying to determine, is this a bedding area or is this a transition area? Somewhere they're just going through and there's lots of deer going through there. If you're seeing lots of them, in my opinion, typically it is bedding areas. And it's multiple bucks that are going through there and they're hitting those rubs, which I like.
I've seen some of the most ones, though, in areas where it's like in the open. I'm just describing one that I'm thinking of off the top of my head, but where they don't bed that much, but it's like every buck that is going from one chunk of timber to the next chunk of timber to like cruising, trying to find does and everything, all go down that line, and all of them freaking get fired up when they go down that line and smack some kind of tree and then continue on, but none of them, it's one strip of timber. I've honestly never really seen bucks bed in it unless they have a doe. That's about the only time I've seen them in
we're talking about big timber.
Yeah, I was just referring to not all the time would it be.
Agreed.
Yeah.
No, because I think you have rubs in fields too.
Yeah.
And on edges, right? But so, in his situation.
The only thing that I would add there is I don't know that I would guarantee that the bucks are there during the rub, because a lot of these rubs can be made now. Once they come out of velvet, then they'll start to respond. Two bucks are fighting, dinking around, two little 3x3s, and a buck's walking in. It gets him a little excited. He stops at a tree because he's like, I'm going to show them. And he marks the tree, and then he moves on to another one. It's not like he's coming back to it. He just reacted to whatever was going on. And I'm thinking of that exact scenario because the guy, one of our buddies that we were just hunting with, showed me a video of a target buck on August 31st that he had where two little bucks are fighting, and then he came walking out responding to those two fighting. And then he walked over and postured at them and everything else. So you could get that kind of activity and you're seeing the results of it, meaning bucks are in the area, they're hitting that. The other thing is sometimes there's certain trees, like I'm thinking willows and stuff along river bottoms, they're always just gobs of rubs. And I think you look at them and you go, that there's going to be rubs on there, and there always is. Doesn't mean the deer are there right all the time. They're coming through there.
But I do think that is an extremely large indicator that they're there during the time of year you're hunting them, more so than outside of it. And even right now, if they're doing it, I mean, we're talking September 10th or September 11th, unfortunately, actually. But September 11th, there's seasons in right now, or you're about to be into seasons. A lot of them are velvet is gone, and they are probably going to be in this area for the rut anyways. So I mean, call me crazy, but I'm putting a lot of money on it. If these got rubs everywhere, 9 times out of 10, I'm putting my money on the fact that they're there during the rut. It's not something
I think you definitely have some deer there, without a doubt. If you got some signs of rubs, but I can tell you that's one of the, for me, rubs are not one of the big I would rather find a scrape. Unless it's a signpost rub. If I feel like I found a signpost rub, then that nullifies that. But other than that, I would rather find a scrape, because scrapes seem to be more indicative of rutting activity, like coming to the rut or getting closer to the rut, where rubs are not always rut driven. They're just like, now you'll see some rubs out there.
What are you talking about? This is literally 100% flipped.
No, it's
Scrapes
not.
are through the summer. They're communicating with each other. They're doing everything, whether it's dominant or not. They get into the season, they get more dominant. They get into the rut, they're even more dominant. The one thing that is pertaining to the rut that they are communicating with is a rub, that it gets more and more powerful through a rut. What are you talking about?
The right rub does, but not just rubs in general. When we're talking about the 2-inch little circle rubs that you find everywhere,
yeah, but
those
that's
don't
still
mean
during
anything.
the rut. That's still a rut indicator. That's not something they're just doing in the summer like they would a scrape.
No, they're doing it now.
I doubt that Dusty's finding tons of rubs that are all coming from deer shedding their velvet in the same spot.
I'm not talking about shedding their velvet. I'm talking about what goes on before we get to. I'm talking about in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
The number of rubs drastically increases the closer you get to the rut.
No, I don't.
You're telling me there's more rubs now?
No,
right now than there is.
I'm saying it could be the same, but what I'm saying, if you find the right rub, if you find the right kinds of rubs.
Okay, so are you going to find the right rub right now?
No, probably not.
When would you find it?
Well, no, that's not true. You could find it now. You could find one now.
When it's closer to the rut.
As it gets closer to the rut, you're more likely they're going to come there more and more often. Yes, the right ones.
Yes. So you would agree, closer to the rut.
No, not really.
Okay. Well, let's try to give Dusty in 3 to 5 step, or 3 to 5. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever number that takes. Actionable things that he can go do to try and find himself his first deer to put on the wall. Yep.
I have number 1.
Okay.
There's a mega tank's freaking monster scrape somewhere on a tree in there, and I'm going to find it. Granted, right now would be you've waited a little while, but I would definitely be keeping an eye out if you're going in. I know, but if he's having to go freaking walk through everything that has no idea where this is, and he's literally covering the whole thing,
you're fine.
You would think that you would have a pretty good idea at this point. But there's got to be one that you've seen them in years previous where they've been kind of going near, or some kind of indicator that, in my opinion, that's a really big starting point for me, is what I'd be trying to find.
Okay, so your step 1 is scout.
And you're referring to a scrape under a tree, not on a tree. Not because you said on a tree, and I want to make sure someone's not confused that you're not talking about a rub.
Like a scrape, not a rub.
Yes,
a scrape yes.
Under a tree.
Okay.
Or around the entire thing, if you're lucky.
So here's your homework. Step 1 is to scout what you're looking for. You're going to try to scout and understand your area. You're going to try to understand, is there any consistency? If I go and I walk, let's just say it's a big Northwood stuff, and you can walk a mile or so, and you find any consistencies, these areas that you're finding rubs, what is causing that? Try and understand that. Try and understand your deer. So step 1 is scout. See if you can find a big scrape. Try and understand your deer a little bit better and get an idea of what they're doing. That's what we're going to say step 1 is. Do we agree?
Sure.
Okay. Step 2.
Move your cameras to those areas and start seeing if you can, number 1, find the kind of deer you're looking for and some intel.
Agreed.
And I wouldn't be worried that you're not getting an everyday picture. You just need to know the deer exists there. You need to know that there is one that you're willing to put on your wall in that area.
Yep. I would agree with that. So, and I would tell you to go back to step 1 real quick. If I was you personally, I don't know how big your area is, but I'd get up really early in the morning, and I would take one day and I'd crush it. like this would make a whole bunch of whitetail hunters probably. I'm sure a bunch listening to
Cringing.
this podcast just absolutely go ugh. And I'm telling you, I would crush that sucker. I would walk every freaking inch of it. And you're going to find that there is black and white areas that is like, this is the spot. Now, if you can do it during shed season, as we all know, I personally believe that's by far the best time. But if you can't, now is the second best time. And so I would be doing that and take one day. That way you're not having to keep going in and maybe I should look over here. Maybe I should look over here. I would just take one day and pound that puppy and find everything that you can, mark it all on Onyx, know where all of your stuff is, and now you have that information. Okay, so we got step 1, scout. Step 2, move the cameras to the areas that you've scouted. Okay, step 3.
I think you're to the point where now, I don't know when the season starts up there. I don't know if theirs is October 1st or if they get to start in September, but I'm probably going to hang a stand or two. I'm assuming that I've now either gotten some pictures or I've figured out that I feel like I'm in the right area, and then I'm going to move into that area. And when I move into that area, and maybe
September 13th. Oh.
So it's just starting.
It's all right.
So
I
it's
still
2
would do
days.
it. I would not change a single
Right.
thing we've stated here.
That'd
So
be so fun if you.
But
if
the
you
one
knew
thing
some
that
of
I would
this.
add then to step 2 is possibly set a stand, what I would call kind of an observation stand. Maybe I'm going to put something where I can see through the timber as far as I possibly can, if I can, and see what's going on. Because no matter what, I can just tell you from hunting stuff, something like that, you're in anywhere, it takes a while to learn it. And so you're going to, and hunting it is when you're going to learn the most. You can find all the stuff you want in the summer and in the winter and all that, but until you're actually physically sitting there and see deer doing something that you go, I didn't realize that was that significant.
I would tell you too, it sounds like, well, by the time this airs, you're going to be in your hunting season. So I would tell you, when you go on this scout mission, take your bow. Because I have an instance that I can think of on a place that was a magical place for a while, that I scouted it one day. I did this exact same thing during hunting season. And Alyssa was with me, and if we'd had a camera and it was just me, I could have killed 2 separate 150-inch deer from my scouting.
Yeah.
Like, I was walking through, and I was like, the deer didn't see me. And then I looked and like, oh, like, that's a big deer. I mean, 150-some-inch deer, and he was already 50. I needed to get 10 yards.
Yeah.
And then kept going across this creek, and had one about run me over. He was rubbing a tree 15 yards from me, and I'm looking at him like, the only trail is the one I'm on. Freaking deer, 6 yards. Now, that one I might not have been a kill unless I was willing to take a frontal, which I wouldn't have been. But I mean, I had another 150, which that one ended up being blade at 6 yards. So you might even just get a shot. So take your bow.
I've even had that during when you guys have. I don't remember. I don't know what it was. It was like middle of the rut though. I had me, Eli, and Christo, and you guys said on the way back, because we hunted and we were gonna go home. You asked if I'd check a camera or something, and I was like, "You want me to go down in there?" You're like, "It'll be fine. I bet you if there's deer in there, they're probably going nuts or whatever, something like that." And I was like, "Okay." 10 yards into the timber, and I hear grunts and stuff. Deer are running around. I'm looking, and we have 2 or 3 come running by, and I told Krista to sit next to me, and Eli and me are like, "What do we do now?" 30 yards, like 3 or 4 of them come running by, no care in the world. Did not even look. But that's kind of an interesting thing to think of. If they're that fired up, sometimes you can get away with quite a bit.
Well, that one was, the ones that I was talking about was early October even.
Yeah.
It was just like I was just getting lucky. I mean, they didn't see me. Okay, so we got step 1, scout, trying to understand your deer. Step 2, move your cameras. Step 3, hang a stand. I agree with. The only thing I'd add to that is I would say utilize the information that you've discovered now and try to understand where these deer are going to and going from, and taking that information into play when you access your stands.
Wind.
I would.
Okay. Wind has got.
I was going to put that with number 1 that I didn't. I think we should add to it that one of the biggest things, and maybe it's not there. I would think so, but the different places you go, the different land features and everything. When you are scouting, is probably one of the best times. You're going to learn it when you're hunting. When you screw something up, is when you get into an area that you have a certain wind. And then you get to that certain spot, and it's not that wind, even though it's consistent out in a big, wherever you parked or whatever else. It was a consistent wind. You get to your stand, and it's not, or it's some different wind. The only time you can figure that out is either when you walk into a stand anticipating a wind, and it's not, or you're scouting. So if you pay attention to certain places when you are scouting, like, hey, I walked in, and I know that it's a northwest wind today, and as I'm scouting, I'm looking for all these different things. You get onto a hillside, or you get next to a creek, or things like that. Take some notes on your Onyx of like the wind was constantly blowing this way or whatever else, so that you don't have to question when you're going to go get in that one stand that you might have put there, or you're about to set a stand up and you realize that it's just going in circles right there. Then maybe I should move it 10 yards away so that I don't go walk in there and screw it up. So I think that with your scouting, you should 100% be paying attention to your land features as far as how is the wind blowing or whatever else could be affecting that. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to do it and screw something up when you go in, because I've done that many, many times.
And that goes to what you were just saying, access, utilizing the wind to access into that, area and things like that, especially because when you are talking about big woods, where a lot of times in our situations here, our woods, you can access them in the morning a lot of times and know you're not going to bother too many deer. They're out in the agriculture feeding, where in the big woods, if you don't know where the feeding source is in there, you may run into just as many where you go in as where you end up.
Yeah.
So you want to be conscious of that and how you think that's going to affect it.
Yep.
Access, like finding the right access is your number 3.
I was saying, I agreed with Dad and like putting in stands and stuff, but make sure that when you are putting in those stands that you're thinking of, which seems obvious, but I've done that before where I put a stand in and then I'm like, oh, how am I going to get to this?
It's not obvious. I've now been around enough people or like been told to go certain places and things that access is like, it may be thought of, but it may not be planned. Like access, in my opinion, is probably one of the number one reasons why you do or don't kill deer.
Bullwinkle taught me you need to take access serious.
Yeah.
Because he whipped me around the block over and over and over until I
figured
that out. Yeah.
I know he'll disagree with me later, but when we talk about the next thing, I think our access the first day or two in our last hunt was what ruined our first day.
Well, so now, is there any other steps that we want to add for him? Because then we can go to Kentucky.
Well, I thought you were going to talk. He asked about utilizing rubs, though, to kill it. I think he was
feeling as though he finds more rubs than he does scrapes. So is there a way to hunt those rubs? More powerful. And we would be telling you you need to do all these things before you go putting a rub in.
Well, but once you get all this established and you have figured out, you find a scrape or you find a signpost rub or you don't find one, okay, but you find you're confident that there's bucks in the area, let's just say starting October 1 into the rut. And if you know that, I would say it is worth your effort to put your own rub tree in. And I believe in them that much. I think they're that big of a draw. Maybe up there with other pines and stuff, maybe the white pine would not have the draw like it does here. I would love to hear from him. I would like to know if there's more white pines available, if it's not as effective as what it is for us, because the white pine with buck junkie, meaning all of the glands from a buck's head on that tree, is a heck of a magnet. And it's going to give you some intel that I don't believe you could get any other way if it doesn't give you an actual spot to actually hunt.
Yeah. And so he was also asking, well, I think that we've got videos and stuff out there that you could check out on how we actually put a rub post in the ground. But in my opinion, all the steps that we just talked about are first and foremost. You can't just go put a rub out or a scrape out and just hope that it works. And so I'd be telling you is, don't be trying to hunt those rubs like it's going to be some magic cure or something. Like it's a hint, it's a clue, it's something that gets you closer, it tells you deer are there. If you do all these things where you're getting all this information, you know how the deer are operating, you know where you need to be, those are all great things, and you start to narrow down into where you get into a spot where now I understand these deer a little bit better. That's when I'd be starting to think, okay, if I need it, I'm probably going to put a rub post blank or something like that. Go ahead.
But, bro, I'm in the big woods. There's trees everywhere for them to rub. Is it going to be worth it?
I think it will. Yeah. I think 100% it will, because now the main thing that I think about the rub posts is not only the fact that you're getting the deer to come back over and over and over again on demand, because you can't really, it's hard to find that naturally. But number 2 is I don't have to go set my stand and then like try to finagle a tree that's in the right spot or move my stand 40 yards because there's a tree over there that I could try to use it on. I'm putting a freaking rub right where I want it, and that means I'm putting a deer right where I want it every time.
Okay, second question. So one, I agree, but because that would be an obvious question to me if I wasn't super familiar with rubs. There's thousands of trees. Is it still worth it? Yes, we've used them in the timber where there's lots of rubs or lots of trees, and they will still come to that rub. Second part of that question that I would say is, so why do you believe that they would take the one that you put in and make that a signpost rub opposed to any other tree?
You want to take it? You want me to?
One, we're going to put our scents on it. We're going to start it already.
Yeah, I'm just trying to help.
Yep. And what we're going to do is we're going to and this is the best analogy I think that you can have. When we put our scents on the tree, particularly buck junkie and scrape king, particularly buck junkie, okay, and you put oil, and you put that on a rub tree. So you scar the tree. You've got it where it looks like a rub, okay? Now you add something that smells like a rub from that other deer made, and you put that out there. What you've done is the exact same thing as the fire hydrant that sits outside the dog park, okay? Every dog gets out of his truck. And as you go walking into the dog park where he wants to go in and run around, he can't resist going over to the hydrant that Roscoe just peed on, and he pees on it. And that's what we're doing to these deer. We're telling them, before you go on to that white oak tree or whatever aspen tree or wherever you're headed, maybe I need to let the other bucks know that I'm here. And there's been several of them here because I can smell it and I can see it.
And pulling all of those glands is not just the one deer either.
No.
That's the best part, is that your signpost rub should have just about every deer in that area hitting it. Well, when you go put the oil on there, you're taking the three main glands that they're using to actually communicate with one another, and from multiple. So now there's no question. It's basically like what I say with scrape addict, that you're carrying a mock scrape in your pocket or a community scrape in your pocket. You're carrying a signpost rub in your pocket with the oil. You put that on there. Now, once they start it, it's game over because the rest are going to start it too.
I think there's one other component to that, which is that you're putting in the right tree. The tree that they want to rub that holds the scent well.
It sounds like where he's at, he could pretty well just go close his eyes and cut a limb off of any tree, and it sounds like what I just looked at. There's a ton of white pines there, which we do prefer white pines.
I would love for our listeners. I know lots of guys are still using other trees. I'd love for someone to send me some photos of another tree, a cedar tree, one they bought at a hardware store, one they cut down, an alder tree. I don't care what it is, but I want to know, show me something that when you're going, oh my gosh, this is like lights out, like a number of bucks, 9 or 10 or 30 different bucks hitting your rub tree. I haven't seen it personally, but I haven't tried but maybe 5 or 6 different types of trees, but I haven't seen that personally have the same effect that the white pine has. And we believe the white pine has it for 2 reasons. One is it's soft, and so therefore the deer can dig in even when they don't put their antler on it. Their head, their hair works into there, and our scent goes into that. We're able to take our scrape rake and drive it into the tree. And number 2, it's sappy. And I'm not talking about that it's sad or it's like got a lot of emotion. I'm talking about that it's sticky. So when they do that, they end up with the scent on their head, and that scent on their head ends up on that tree and it stays there.
Yep.
That's why I believe they like those trees so much. But there could be another draw that we don't know. But I mean, I
think too, it helps them focus. And what I mean by that is, so like when you're going to go and put this in the timber, we're not saying go and put this where it's in an area where there's 15 other trees in a matter of 10 feet. Right. We're saying you're kind of putting this in an open area in the timber. And I think that, to me personally, I think once they start ripping that thing up, it's like there's not so many distractions. It's like, oh, that one, right? And it's like a huge beacon. Okay, so trying to give you pointed steps here, and you're getting the pointed steps with the long description. So we'll go through them again. Number 1 was scout. Number 2 is move cameras, right? Number 3 was hang stands, consider your access. Number 4, put rub trees next to your stands. And then step 5 that I would tell you would be adjust. The odds that you're going to nail all of it, on this very first try is
Not very
probably
good.
pretty low. But you should get way closer, and then don't be afraid to move your stand. Or if you need to, go do this process again.
And I think you switch 5 and 4 just for the sake of your own back.
Yeah,
and
that
work.
could be true.
I would, and I'm saying,
And you might hurt yourself.
Get yourself figured out a little bit. Narrow these suckers down to where you're to a point of either one, I don't have the perfect funnel that is getting these deer to come by right here at 20 yards every time. They may come by at 60 yards, but you know they're coming by every time. Okay, you've gotten narrowed down to that. Now I'm putting my rub in.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm not moving my stand.
Yeah.
The one thing that I would clarify, you said, and put a rub tree next to your stand. If you're going to put 3 or 4 stands in there, if that's what his approach is going to be, and they're going to be somewhat close within 150 yards of each other or something like that, because maybe there's a little piece of terrain, I'm not putting a rub tree by every one of them. I'm picking one and I'm putting it. Now, if they're quarter mile or half a mile apart, I might put more than one rub tree.
Yep.
And then the last one is, and we got to make sure that people understand this, as good as the scents are, as good as the rub trees are, they're not going to take deer that are not there and bring them there. That's not, you're not sucking your deer from the neighbor that's a half mile away or a mile away and going, I'm going to drop this rub tree in there. And they told me once they get a whiff of it, they can't stand it. They're not going that. Even at the dog park, the dog's not going across the street and around behind the building to go pee on something because he doesn't know it's there.
Yep.
He knows it's there when he comes walking into the, so you need it to be, you need to still use your own abilities to find your deer, find your bucks, and then give them what they want inside that core area.
Yep. Which is where if you're not finding them, that's where you would adjust.
Exactly.
Yep. So that should give you a pretty good idea on, those are the action steps that we would tell you to do.
Yep.
To hopefully find yourself a wall hanger and then kill him. And I'm going to guess too, and I think part of the other reason that we are all saying rub tree is, maybe you guys aren't thinking of this, but to me, I'm guessing that northern Minnesota is probably funnels and pinch points probably aren't lots of them.
I imagine it's pretty open.
From what I remember or think is that it's pretty much like Canada.
Lots of water.
And pretty flat and just thick, right? So if that's going to, everybody telling you, well, get in the pinch point and things, well, that can be really difficult when there's not a freaking pinch point. That's where a rub tree could be a really, really powerful tool because now you're giving them a reason to come within shooting distance.
Yeah, I would agree. 100%.
Okay. So with that, let's transition
to the other side of the country.
Yeah.
We're going south.
To Kentucky. So you guys just went to Kentucky.
Yes, sir.
And went hunting.
And we don't have a deer.
And how'd it go?
We did not kill one. But that's not, but that happens a lot. I mean,
before you even get into that, I guess I feel bad for them a little bit. I know he does too. Because according to what we were told in that area, they haven't seen it. It's been around, but they haven't seen it. And we found it indefinitely, barely starting, and that's EHD while we were there.
They've never had it before?
They've had it in Kentucky, but according to who we talked to multiple people in that area, like that county, they really hadn't had any experience with it. It's been around in other counties in Kentucky and stuff, but that one hadn't had it.
And then you guys were there for 3 days. And
we were there.
We were there for 4 days, and in the first 2 days, we found 4
that we know of.
Yeah.
Like the first one was we smelled it picking up Chad out of his stand, and me and Chad were like, "Oh, that smells bad." And that was our first there's no cattle, there's nothing on this property. And the next day when we went in, we smelled them in 2 or 3 different places, and I said, "Screw it, let's go." And I felt like Dan walking through this nasty crap and found a really nice buck that was definitely EHD. It had been dead for probably 3-4 days and nothing had touched it or anything. And then multiple other places, then just by our place, one laying in the pond. In a very short period of time, very quickly finding, and we didn't even go look at the other ones because we didn't have time to, which they have a couple missing or bucks that they had frequently. They don't have anymore, which is terrifying.
10 or 12 days, and they have no pictures, and had pictures of them consistently. Now I'd lost them.
Do you think it's possible that maybe this is an area where they've had it on a minor scale before, and they just have never really noticed because it's always been minor and not like major?
That's what I said. I said I'd be willing to bet you guys have had it some because it's probably not just surrounded you. You haven't had it, But I would be right now with everything we've talked to, like with biologists and stuff, they look like they're having the perfect storm of it's going to be bad. That it was happening so quickly. With the time we were there, I think they probably added a couple. And then it's so dry. We were watching the pond and stuff we were sitting at. It looks like a freaking breeding ground for the freaking midges and crap. I mean, and they're all going to it.
Great.
Yeah. From day one, we hunted a particular blind to day 4, which was our last day. That pond had receded, I'm going to say 5-6 feet, because there was a rock the first day that he was filming turtles climbing up on it, coming out of the water. And when we were back on the last night, it was 3 feet from the rock was 3 feet out of the water. It wasn't even in the water.
But
so
that was first one that sucks, because we've seen it and they didn't really know how to handle it. Like we're like, I'd be just prepare yourself that this may not be, because it was also brand new. Like this is a new piece of ground that they just got.
Right.
I'm like, oh, that's not good luck.
Was there much other water around?
There's like multiple ponds.
It seemed like where we were hunting at wasn't a lot of creeks or a river or anything like that.
Very similar
where
to
we
like
were.
your ponds in like Wyoming. Like they all look like that. Difference is they're like in a CRP field or in a cornfield, something like that.
Right. I wonder if you could spray those in.
Well, I did tell him that we have a friend that has done that. You know, I mean, I don't know whether it's legal in the States or whatever, but I know someone who did it one time and they said it was effective. And what they sprayed was not illegal chemicals or anything like that, just what they had been told would affect the midges.
What would be different in spraying that and like mosquitoes?
I don't know.
I
If
just
that's
don't
something you want to get into though either, because look at the South. They don't have it anymore. I mean, I know it sucks, especially that we're dealing with it, but it's not like they never had it. They did have it, and now deer don't get it anymore. Like eventually, I mean,
they build up an immunity if it's there all the time.
Yeah.
As opposed to what they've told us here is when we only have it like an outbreak of it, and then we have a few years and then another outbreak. Those deer don't build up an immunity to it because they haven't seen it again. You have some that have it, but then those deer die off, and then the next group come along. But we're in the South, like Alabama, Georgia, places like that, they don't see any they have EHD there, but they don't see a die-off from it because the deer have built up an immunity to it because they're exposed to it all the time.
Well, that's a main difference. And I would be entertaining spraying the thing, because I was under the impression that it was just a matter of time because it's moved to the north. Because it is relatively new in areas. They've told us that as far as getting north.
Yes, like Iowa will tell you that until 2012, they had not seen any.
Yeah, if that's the case, it just ain't going to go away because you ain't getting enough frost from spraying.
I don't know that. I don't know the right thing to do there. You're kind of taking over Mother Nature. Personally, I say spray it because there's a deer I want to kill, and he could, like the whole time we were hunting, I'm like, I feel like I have a whole bunch of hunters competing with me right now. Only it's a freaking bug that's out there that could kill the deer I'm trying to shoot. And that sucks. Or he comes to the water that we're sitting at and he looks all emancipated and everything and then just tips over in front of us. That's going to suck. And it's just a horrible way for the deer to die. They would, I mean, as far as death goes, you would much rather have an arrow stuck through you and you are gone in a few seconds as opposed to dying for 24 to 48 hours.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
All right. So hunt-wise, though.
So hunt-wise, I mean, so we had I learned a lot, it's the first time ever doing a velvet hunt. We were hunting with Bridge Boy Outdoors out of, they have a place in Illinois and in Kentucky, and this was in Kentucky. Bob Husky was our guide, and Bob is awesome. I mean, we enjoyed hanging out with Bob, hearing the stories and stuff like that. Bob's been all over the country and stuff like that. But we were really reliant on him and all those guys to kind of tell us what we needed. We had no intel other than we had a few pictures before we got there. And so what we were set up on was, one was going to be a general area because Chad was with us as well. We had another hunter, so 2 hunters. Easton was there, but he was running a camera. So we set up, we went off of where the deer were coming to some bean fields for Chad. That was kind of the core. But we had to hurry because what we were seeing there was the beans were green in some areas, but they were yellow in some areas. And when those beans turn yellow, the deer don't come. They quit.
They've had this area for a long time, but the specific spot that we were at was brand new. They just got it in June or July or something like this year. So we didn't have. I mean,
didn't
there
have a
wasn't
lot of
much
information.
on-
You know, they don't know the travel patterns and stuff like that. They were who they got the piece of property from. There were some stands left over, which we utilized. Easton and I hunted one of them, and it was close. I mean, that gave us some really good information because it was kind of like having an observation. We could see beans, corn, beans, and then like I don't know. That wasn't really CRP. It was just a grown over field, wasn't it?
No, it's what our guy last week was talking to us about doing. Velvet Kip.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he was talking
Right.
about.
Like letting your field, like a locust area, because there were some locust trees in there, just kind of grow up, and that's where the deer were. We found out that's where many of the deer,
It's like
including the
more
bucks,
weeds in
were
CRP,
bedded.
but it's native stuff still. It's just more variety than CRP. And holy cow,
They were
covered it. They didn't care about anything else. All over it.
But some of the things that I learned, one is I guess I knew deer bedded in beans, but I didn't realize they bedded that much in the middle, like not near the trees. We were sitting in the stand, and all of a sudden I'm like, dude, there's a deer here out like 150 yards out in the beans. It just stood up.
Looked like gophers.
Yeah, just a head would pop up, then it would go back down, and another one would pop up. It was like, whoop, whoop, up there, lay back down. Whoop, there's another one, lay back down. And when they laid down, you couldn't see them. I mean, even a buck, you would not have been able to see because the beans were that tall.
Yep.
So that was one thing that I was like, well, that will work for anyone. Make sure that you're not, when you look out across a bean field, you think, well, there's nothing out there. That ain't necessarily the truth. I know in a cornfield, we know that they could be living out there, but in a bean field, they could do the same. And what kind of like threw me off was, I was like, is it really comfortable to lay out there? Because it was 90 degrees. But in those beans, it's when they're dark green like that, it is still pretty cool in there, you know? And so they could get out there and they just disappear.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys go on a hunt, and what's the information that you have to work with and the strategy, and what's it look like?
What we're looking at is it's early season. We're velvet hunting. Opening day was September 6th. So we were already looking at probably 30 or 40% of the deer were out of velvet. We were losing deer pretty quickly, you know, but it was okay. We would have killed a deer not in or out of velvet. That wasn't so anyhow, so what we were going to look at was water, because that time of year, they had a water source and they had a bunch of deer coming to that. And then the other one, again, was food sources and knowing because again, doing a bunch of the scouting in the summer, one of the issues with that farm and the other farm is there's no way to glass it, like to get somewhere to be able to see it. So you have to rely on trail cameras. I mean, there's no other way to know whether those deer are coming out in those fields or not.
So we had Warren's asking the information we had going in.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
We had
so the
some trail
information we had
camera
going
photos.
in is we knew some deer in different areas, mainly that were like could assume to have been a bedding area, going through some feed or beans, like agriculture. Some of them we knew were at a water source. We did not know consistency wise if they were like.
So no pattern, no summer patterns on these deer.
We didn't have any pattern understood whatsoever. We just knew of certain deer were in certain areas, and then when I got a lot more of the photos and stuff, I was able to look and see, we've had this specific deer in multiple spots, and I think that was a pretty big part too, because these suckers are. I'm one to tell you the deer don't go very far. The ones they're like during the summer consistently are going almost a mile in like a straight line or in a loop. And the only reason I knew that is because Bob had photos from a totally different spot that we weren't going to be able to get over to, and I had him show me them, and I started matching up deer that had been over there. There's 3/4 of a mile one way from where we hunted, and then another 3/4 of a mile to another spot, and within days of each other, they were going back and forth. So we basically had information of deer being in certain spots, but we didn't have patterns.
No.
We didn't have consistencies. So that's what we were dealing
The closest to the pattern was they did feel like the deer were consistently coming to that water. That was it. But a lot of it was daytime. At the time when we first got there, we thought it was not much daylight movement. It was almost all nighttime movement. That's only photos we had seen. By the end of the trip, on the fourth day, or the third day, we had decided maybe we need to go back to the water, and then it confirmed that we were already decided that's where we were going when we got photos of deer in the middle of the day. Like the doe and fawn was like 10:30, and then a buck walked in at like 1:30. And so then we went back and got back in there, and we're like, but the other issue is we had one blind there, which we talked about putting another one on the other side so that you could hunt, because you got to hunt the wind, you know. And then the other thing was we weren't positive where the deer were coming from going into the pond. You're literally in the middle of, envision 3 types of terrain: corn, beans, kind of almost more than 180, because they kind of went around, and then a waterway. So where are they going to come out of the corn? Are they going to come up the waterway, down the waterway? Or are they coming out of the beans? And the very first time when we hunted it, they came out of the beans straight downwind to where we thought they would not come from. It was just one deer. But anyhow, the last night we had an east wind blowing into the beans. We walked through the beans to get to the blind. That, I think, was one of the smartest things we did.
Access. The first day's access. Right.
Yeah, because the first time that we accessed it, we walked the edge of the corn and the beans all the way around. And no matter what, you're going to have your wind blowing either into the beans or into the corn, one or the other.
In where we walked in that first day, me and him discussed it, but we're like, nobody knows the place super well yet. Me and him, when we were about to walk in, we're like, I don't know if I'd walk like this. Just because we felt as though we were close to the waterway, we were close to the corn, both places we felt as though they were bedding. Sure enough, the way we walked that way, we didn't hardly see any deer. The last day that we were there, I know he has a different theory on it, but I think that we accessed straight out in the middle of nowhere and got to it, and we never walked anywhere close to the waterway or the corn or anything, and that's where our big boys came from, and where we actually saw them. Which we knew consistently he was in that area because we knew another spot he was going to, meaning he had to go back and forth between that. That was the only thing we did know. And so I think access.
Deer that you were
we were hunting one specific one that was definitely target, and then there was a second one that we had show up that was during the day, like 1 o'clock, that ended up a mile away, where Chad almost shot him, where we had put him.
The same day.
Or we all 3 of us.
So they had a picture of him that day when we walked in and sat down in the blind. He had been there at like 1:30, and we got in like 3:30 or 4.
Yep.
Like 3:30 or 4, and Chad saw him at 7:15, almost about 3/4 of a mile away.
Yep.
So you guys go into this with very little information.
Mm-hmm.
We think we accessed wrong the first time. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think a combination. I think one, so we went in, we threw up a rub tree, or I did. It was my call that I wanted to put a rub tree in there because I was hoping that we could get them to a certain point, because the pond was kind of big, not huge. I could shoot both ways, but if you've ever set up a double bull blind, I couldn't shoot out the window on the one side. I was shooting out the side of the, does that make sense? I guess. Yeah. So I could shoot out the side here, and then the window was facing the other way. So I wanted something to say, okay, Easton, face the cameras here. Let's focus on this. So we put the rub tree outside of the water, and it was 31 yards. And I'm not so sure that we didn't shoot ourselves in the foot by walking around a little more there. We spent a little more time there, but we had to. Now the outfitter, the guide, he wanted to put the blind in 2 days before, and I asked him not to. And the reason I asked him not to was because I wanted to make sure. I know you can go set a blind and get it in the right vicinity and still not be able to kill something. And I wasn't sure that he would understand trying to film what we needed to accomplish. I think he was going to put it in roughly the same area, but the other thing is he didn't have a double bull blind, and that hurts me when I'm hunting. I love them because we're capable of shooting so much more. So anyhow, we had to go in there. We had to brush it in. We dropped the rub tree in there.
Which was a pain in the butt to brush it in the grass.
Yeah.
There's not brush. It's just taller CRP type grass in between a bean field and your skyline.
Yeah, no tree, anything. You're just putting it in the grass and covering it and everything. But I felt like it was pretty good, and judging from what was going on, we had a deer walk by the camera that same day, like 2 hours after we left. So we thought, okay, we're good. We went back that evening, we saw one deer. So then we had to do something, and the camera went dead there for a day or two. And then we ended up, so we did, I think what anyone else would do, we moved to the food source that we thought that they were hitting, which was the beans. And it gave us, Easton and I could see, and I agree with Easton, that gave us the opportunity to move Chad to a spot where, okay, now we're in 2 spots. When the water lit back up, we went there, and he went to where I was banking on, we need to be right here. And what that was a corner. It was the corner of the beans, corner of the corn, and then that grass that we're talking about, the overgrown field, all came together. And he was 40, I think it ended up being like 45 or 50 yards from the fence itself. He was hoping they wouldn't hug the fence, and they would come up and then hop the fence to go into the corner of the beans. And the one night we saw 10 or 15 deer come through that grass and over to there.
Without splitting hairs though here, because we don't have visual aids. I feel like we're getting very detailed. What we truly did here was went in with we had information of deer and where they wanted to be. Outside of that, we had to figure out kind of what they wanted to do, where they wanted to go. And so the biggest thing I could say is we zoomed out. We backed up as far as we could. Instead of trying to just jump in and get lucky in one spot, we said, get out, let's see if we can see. And that was and I think that's great tips for everybody else hunting early in the year. If you don't have the information you need, which you do early in the year, get back to where you can see, you can scout, you can understand how deer are operating. Because where Chad ended up being, Chad was about 300-400 yards away from us, also in an observation area. He was seeing deer in his spot. We were seeing deer in our spot. But there was somewhere in the middle that we could see part of it where they were coming by, but we didn't know what we thought they were going over to him, and they never made it to him.
He wasn't seeing them.
And so that allowed us to kind of say, okay, we're both in an area where we have them coming near us. There's a common spot in the middle. One of us needs to be in the middle because we can get in there comfortably, and we're going to have, and he had like 15, 20 deer coming by him and did not care. And like he could have shot lots of them. That was the only time we could have shot deer.
And he was in blind too?
No, because they were clearing timber out in that area, and so they had a broken down excavator for like a week or two. And so we were going to put a blind up and try to brush it in, but it's flat dirt and then tall grass, flat dirt and then tall grass. And I'm like, it's the last day, dude, and all of us are like, screw
send
this. There's no putting a blind in where we really want to. Might as well send it. And so the best spot, because they kept walking around it, was the excavator. Yeah. So he sat in a freaking chair next to the excavator.
Under the bottom of the excavator.
In between the tracks. Yep. It was a big excavator.
Did he get bumped at all?
No, he said not one single deer ever knew he was there.
He said he only had one. They got nervous or something and walked on. They're
probably just so used to it that they didn't even.
I think it was a perfect cover scent.
We gave him a cover scent. We gave him a
diesel.
5 gallons of diesel fuel to dump on the ground.
Exactly. But my point is, we basically got some information, and then we knew kind of where to start. We were able to back up, get an idea, the lay of the land, see what deer are doing, get into a spot where we narrowed it down and he picked it where he wanted to be and got it. I mean, I think another day or two. Honestly, that night, I think that there was a pretty dang good chance that he shoots the buck that we were talking about. It's 150 so much deer still in velvet. But there was miscommunication
So me and Easton, so the other half of that, Easton and I decided to go back to the water hole. However, we were going to access it differently, and we had a different wind. If we access the way we were talking about through the bean field, wind's in our face the entire time and will be in our face when we get to the blind. And it was. You could feel it coming through the blind that night. And we saw 15 deer, and they had no clue. 2 of them, because I had a little issue because there was a little south in it, which blew it toward a corner of the pond. But that seemed to go away after the first 2 or 3 deer came, because they would just catch it. They would come to the pond, get a drink, then they'd walk around. When they got to the far end, then they kind of like lifted their head and took off. But all the others had no clue. So we get in there and we see, I passed about a...
Hold on. Back up. We're not to your side yet.
Okay. Sorry.
The whole reason we're saying this is because it's the last day. Okay. The miscommunication, very simply, not 17 other stories to go with it, was the last day. We have equipment in the field. We're going to have Bob come in with the Ranger after it's dark and everything and come pick us all up so that we can throw our blind in there, throw whatever else we have in there. Bob's instructions were, let us text you when we're out of light, there's no deer, it's clear to come in, whatever. Okay. We weren't thinking about Chad because Chad is out in the wide open. He's going to have till freaking legal light, like no doubt. We're 5-10 minutes before legal light, probably 5 minutes before legal light. Right. 6-7 minutes before that, Dad texts Bob, says, hey, you can come in. In all reality, we were probably expecting Bob to stop near where we were. He had to go another 100-200 yards to where the truck was parked for Chad, which would have been an issue. We didn't know where he was going to really go to, but we said, hey, come on in. Chad still has legal light. Chad has shooter buck coming in at 70, 80 yards, he said, and it was walking right up where we predicted them to be doing it. And he said, I could hear a freaking truck coming. I didn't know what it was. And like a minute later, he said, I had about 4 or 5 minutes and I had enough light to shoot. I felt there's a chance I didn't get a shot because the deer could have came in to like just walked just out of range or whatever, but he was doing what we all kind of anticipated him doing. And when we pulled in, all the deer ran everywhere.
Was Chad or not Chad, the Bob or whoever right there immediately ready as soon as you texted him, or what?
He had pulled to he said he was going to wait on the highway.
Okay.
And so when we texted him to come on in, because like I said, it literally, I want to say 7:36 was end of shooting light. And I think at 7:31, I could look at my text and see when I texted him. And I said, come on in. And there was literally like 5 minutes left. Well, I no sooner text him that when Easton says deer. And I look and he says buck. Big buck. Then he says, well, I don't know if it's that big, but there. And so I grab my binoculars because now I'm confused.
It's dark. It was the first big
and
deer
as soon as I look,
I didn't want to do one of those. Like, oh, it's just a forked horn.
So I look through the binoculars at 30. He's at 40 yards. As soon as I look through the binoculars, it's the deer we've been looking for. He's got a great big kicker kind of slash drop tine. And I'm like, it's him. And so Easton says, can you shoot? And I'm like, well, we still have, I mean, I know it's legal to still shoot, but I already took my release off. My bow's hanging up, but I haven't taken the arrow off. So all I got to do is put my release back on. And then I ask him, can you film him? And he says, I'm on him now. And he comes straight in, comes right to the water. Well, he's at 33 yards in the water. The problem is with the way, like I said, I'm not shooting out the front of the window. I'm shooting out the back. And he's so far, I cannot shoot him where he's quartered hard to me either. Also. So I'm like, I can't shoot him there. I have to let him, when he comes out of the water, then he'll be 35 quartered away. And then so I bring my bow up like I'm going to pretend to shoot to see. And I can't see a pin, not even looking through the peep sight. And I'm like, there's no pins, like nothing there. And so I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We're not in there. And he came out of there. He walked right like that. He was really slow and he went up. So we got 5-6 minutes of footage of him, but we had the deer we were looking for, even in under shooting light. But just the way the circumstances laid out, I couldn't shoot him.
I did feel bad for Chad.
Yeah.
Because I ended up because Chad was pretty frustrated about it, but didn't really say anything. Then I asked him after. I said, okay, be straight with me. What are the odds you think that deer? It sounds like he's kind of doing what we thought he would. And he's like, it's an animal, obviously, so anything could happen. But he was doing exactly what the rest of them had done, and I already had 4 or 5 does that had just walked right through that I was good a shot, and he was doing it, and I was like, oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
Because, I mean.
Because that's on me. I never even considered that Bob was going to go anywhere near Chad to come get us. I didn't even think about it. I just thought, oh, well, we're done, so you can come get us.
Yeah.
So we had 2 opportunities at 2 good deer. They do have some quality deer. Easton's talking about like moving. So they killed a 192-inch deer half a mile from the farm we were hunting. He had that deer a few times during the summer, but lost him because he traveled a little ways over to another food plot. We saw pictures of the deer after he'd been killed. But
yeah, he's big.
Yeah.
Big.
Well, I mean, to go from just a rough idea to actually having him inside of 40 yards in 4 days, I think is
I was shocked.
Pretty good.
I didn't think that we were gonna see that deer.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew there's other ones there, but I thought the chances of us really getting narrowed down on that sucker was gonna be tough, especially because from what we did know, all we had was dark information. We didn't have light, like daylight.
Right. Yeah,
the only time of year is
the only daylight photo or video that he had him was the 13th of August.
Yeah.
It had been a long time.
Well, that's what we tell people all the time. You're going to try and kill a specific big deer. Time is your best friend.
Oh, yeah.
So to be able to do that in 4 days, I think that, you may not have punched a tag on it, but that to me is a pretty successful situation.
I'd like to do it again.
And the hurtful thing was he was still in full velvet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was kind of painful.
I think he's probably 60s.
I think that deer's big.
No, I've got video of him in person, and I was looking at him through binoculars and stuff.
Yeah.
And
I think he might be a little.
Originally,
he's heavier than bent beam.
I thought that there's a chance he's 170, and then I did get to see him in person, and his tines just aren't super real long. I think he's, I think probably mid-60s, and with his extra little whatever the truck
He's
you
got
call it.
yeah,
He's got a couple other extras and stuff. He's a cool deer. He's a really cool deer.
How short do you think his tines are? Because to me, his G2s looked like they were 10, 11.
No, they're like
I think like 8 or
Yeah.
9, I thought.
Really?
Yeah.
When I saw him.
Huh.
I didn't
But-
care. All I looked, as soon as I saw the flyer, I was like, it's him, shooter, let's kill him.
I would like to go back to Kentucky just for the sake of they did. Number one is I don't know. You look on a map, Kentucky ain't that far south. In my opinion, they're still Midwest. I don't know why they're not considered Midwest, and it sure looks like the Midwest. But their deer seem to operate quite a bit different, and I would like to kind of get to know that a little bit better.
We might have to make another trip back down there. All right. Is that it for today? We
We
done
gave him a good one.
talking deer with these folks?
I believe so. Well, unless Warren's got a wacky fact, which it sounds like he's trying to do.
I do.
You better hurry. I should have brought my farmer's almanac. There's all kinds of them in
Oh
there.
my lord!
In 2014, a man at Zhang International Airport in China purchased a first-class, fully refundable plane ticket that gave him access to the VIP lounge. He rebooked his flight 300 times over the course of a year to enjoy free meals, then canceled the ticket and received a full refund when the airline discovered his scheme.
He still got the refund.
Yes, but then they canceled it on him, so he couldn't keep doing it.
Yeah, but he already got it. He already
Yeah,
did it after
right.
2 or 3 times.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. But I'm gonna come up with a rule definition of what a wacky fact is, so I can actually have some merit to when I can.
Well, that's a story.
Yeah, that is a lot of these are stories.
You need,
I
you
want,
need
like,
a fact.
Well, this one, here's another story, though, but this one's kind of relatable because we have somebody in the family who I could see doing this. In 2014, in Kentucky, a 27-year-old camper fell asleep in a hammock. In the morning, his friend saw him get up and sleepwalk off a 60-foot cliff. Rhododendron.
Rhododendron. That's a plant.
A rhododendron bush broke his fall, so he didn't have any life-threatening injuries. Local interviews say he had sleepwalked before, but very rarely.
60 foot and you don't die?
He needs a leash. He needs to be. He needs a
Tied to the
stake.
hammock.
You screw it in the ground and then
Yeah.
hook it on his foot so he can't go very far.
What
He was outside of a hotel
was it
room.
in Canada? Yeah, where was it that he did that?
That was in Wyoming, wasn't it?
Wyoming was the one I just woke up scared and I didn't know where it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, for those of you just tuning in, the wacky fact that Warren just gave, but the one that was not a wacky, well, it is a wacky fact that we woke up to someone knocking on our hotel door one day, only to open the door and see my son outside the door, fully asleep.
When we were in a different hotel room,
It was like
right?
4 a.m. or something.
Well, he was knocking. No, he was in with Mom and I, but he was in a different room. And then he had gone out. We didn't know that. And then he's knocking on the door to get back in. And we're like, well, what are you doing out? And he's in his pajamas, and he's like 11. And it was not a good deal. Mom was scared to death at that point, which I was, because you could have gone anywhere. We have no idea where you did go or how long you were out
I had
there.
a dream of pissing on their thing, like they're like outside, like they're like where the front thing is. I thought it was a dream, and I don't know if I actually did it or not, but I would imagine that my body was telling me that I was at home. I can go outside and pee off the porch. But that was scary.
Yeah,
I
that's
did that
a
in
bad
Great
deal.
Falls, too, when you found me in the garage.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't think I do that anymore.
Gotcha. But a 60-foot drop is a long drop. That kid is really lucky. The part that we need to make note of is the excavator. If it had run, it didn't. The reason it was parked there is because it was broke down. And so they'd been there for a while. But anyhow, Chad came up with a really good idea. If it had been running and we were just leaving it there, he's like, you guys could have put me in the bucket and lifted me up. And then he would have been like elevated out, and they'd have never
they would have never looked.
Never
There's
paid
nothing
any
out
attention.
there. It was like antelope, if they don't really look up.
Yeah.
In that spot, like why would they ever be looking up?
Yeah,
I'd be
especially if
willing
it's
to bet.
sitting there with the bucket up all the time. Who cares?
You probably could make that a really comfortable
Oh
spot,
yeah,
too.
it was a pretty big excavator. I mean, it's got a
Well,
big bucket on it.
he tried to just sit in the cab,
Yeah.
but I had dealt with the stand that was not too far from there, and he's like, it was so hot because the sun's just beating on
He
this
said
glass.
he did sit in the cab. For a
He
bit.
got in just for a minute, and then there's no door.
Yeah.
And so he said that the only way to shoot out the one side, he would have to get out and walk around, So he's like, I can't do this because I'll get busted because it's glass. They could see him.
Yeah.
But you could see from everywhere up there. But up in that, if you would lifted him up in that bucket, that would have been freaking stellar.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate everyone. Thank you guys for all the scent purchases and all the apparel purchases. But don't forget that we still have stuff for sale. Lots of scents. Get them quickly because I do think we have a few things that did sell out. Did we not, Easton? Scrape King spray. Is that correct? And paste. They're still good in some of the packages, right?
Still have a couple, yeah.
But don't wait, guys. If you're one of those sitting out there going, I got plenty of time, get your stuff now before the season gets here. Some of you, the season's already here. Greased Hunting, we're out.